Another slow day in the Russia probe. Robert Mueller is threatening to subpoena the president. The president is threatening to interfere with the Justice Department. And oh yeah, the White House lawyer leading the president's team in the response to the Russia probe, he's leaving. The panel tonight. Keith Boykin is here, CNN political commentator, former Clinton White House aide. Steve Cortez is here, CNN political commentator and former Trump campaign advisor. Alex Burns is a CNN political analyst, national political reporter at the New York Times. And Evan Siegfried is a Republican strategist and author of GOP GPS. Alex, to you first. Mueller issues, let's say, Mueller issues a subpoena to Donald Trump. What happens? Legally, a major unknown, constitutional crisis. Who knows where we go there? But what does it mean politically?
Well, look, I think that for the president to end up in, assuming the president didn't happily comply with the subpoena,
right,
I think that becomes very politically ugly very, very fast. That, you know, voters don't necessarily understand all the ins and outs of the legal process. And frankly, most of us don't understand the ins and outs of the implications of a subpoena fight involving a president of the United States because we've not seen it before. But anytime voters start to hear words like subpoena, deposition, pardon, indictment, anything like that, and that just sort of adds to an aura of chaos, an aura of instability. That is, as far as we can tell, one of the big sort of political black marks on the administration is just the perception that things aren't stable.
And doesn't it just suck the air out of anything else that the president would want to talk about?
I think it does in New York newsrooms like this.
Oh, come on.
I don't think it does in the country. And by the way, that's not just my opinion.
If the president has a subpoena on him, you don't think that people around the country would be interested?
All of this has been talked about for weeks and months, and what's going on in the country, in the flyover country that media doesn't pay enough attention to. The economy is strengthening.
I'm from flyover country, so don't start claiming that we don't pay attention to it.
The economy is strengthening and his popularity is rising.
Okay.
So this is much ado about nothing. This is a lot of very legalistic talk. It's interesting, it's fascinating from an academic perspective, but the policies of the president, whether it's in North Korea, whether it's in North Dakota, those policies are working for Americans.
Okay, great talking point. Now you can actually answer my question, Steve, which is, if he has nothing to hide, and he says he does not,
right,
and he would tell the truth, why let it come to the point of having to issue a subpoena? Why not go in?
No, look, and that makes some logical sense, but that's why the Constitution has protections against self-incrimination, right? Because all of us, if enough investigators put enough attention on us and we were forced to be interviewed by them, we might very well unwittingly, unknowingly say something that would jeopardize us. And so that's why we always have the right to not be interviewed.
But that's sort of a different question, though, right? That if the president were to invoke the Fifth and say, I'm not going to do an interview because I don't want to incriminate myself, that's sort of the political implications that are probably different. The legal implications are extremely different than sort of countering with the claim that the president doesn't have to answer a subpoena, right? Because that creates an ugly fight in the courts.
Well, he doesn't have to answer the first.
Actually, he does. That's erroneous. So I have to rebut you with facts.
We don't know that.
Steve,
it's never been decided.
It's actually been decided. I'm going to give you case law right now if you want to hear it. Okay, in 1974, 8-0, the Supreme Court said that President Nixon had to comply with a subpoena to produce evidence in a criminal case. In 1988, the Supreme Court ruled 7-1 in Morrison v. Olson. They ruled 7-1 that a special counsel is 100% able to investigate the executive branch and any member of it. So
that was an independent counsel, which is very different from a special counsel. Very different.
Steve, I've spoken to lawyers and judges. I've worked in the criminal justice system. They have to comply. Presidents are not immune. President Clinton testified in depositions and he testified in criminal cases as well.
I think this proves my point, though, that it would be impossible for the country to not pay attention to it if it came to it. I really do. But I also wonder, Keith, is there a scenario in what Steve's in kind of what Steve's saying here, that this could be a good thing politically for Donald Trump, in the sense that he is under attack?
Absolutely. I mean, that's always the danger. I mean, that's what happened with Bill Clinton when the Republicans impeached him. There was a backlash against it, and his popularity soared. The difference, I think, now is that Donald Trump's popularity is already in the tank. It's
rallying significantly.
In spite of what Steve says, it's in the 39 to 42% range, according to Real Clear Politics. It has been that way for over a year. There's no chance, or likelihood of his recovering that. And you know, Alex is throwing around these terms about impeachment and depositions and indictments, and we're talking about the Trump's his doctor's office being raided. This is language we haven't heard since the Nixon era, and that's what people see in Donald Trump now. They see the thuggery and the kleptocracy and the basic cronyism of the Donald Trump administration.
And then in the middle of all of this, I don't understand this one, Alex. I've done what I've come to do in terms of managing the White House response to the special counsel's request. That's what Ty Cobb put out this afternoon when he was saying that he is retiring. This just baffles me because they're in the middle of it. They might be facing a subpoena. They might not be. Regardless, they're nowhere near the end of it. It doesn't appear until special counsel comes out and says it's over. Well, how is he done managing? Can he say, I've checked the box, I'm done?
Well, look, I've not spoken to Ty Cobb about what he meant by that, but look, it's sort of a mantra that you've heard from a number of people around the president that, look, you can advise him up to a point, you can appeal to his best angels up to a point, and at a certain stage, he's going to do what he's going to do. Ty Cobb has been overall advising a more conciliatory approach with the probe to let's not have a big blow up with the special counsel. So perhaps that's an indication that we're going to see a change in footing. I do think that there are a lot of people politically around the president who are nervous about the idea of a head-on collision with the special counsel, actually for some of the reasons that Steve was underscoring before, that they feel like they have some relatively decent to actually good stories to be telling about the administration on a policy level. So why would you jeopardize all of that with a gigantic legal battle?
And Ty Cobb's trying to take the temperature down because Robert Mueller is very upset. He sees it as a breach of trust that these 49 questions were leaked. And the Washington Post, the Trump legal team, accidentally outed themselves yesterday in the Washington Post by saying that Jay Sekulow wrote a list of 49 questions which he thought would be asked. So it's clear that the leak did not come from Mueller of those questions to the New York Times, but it was Jay Sekulow or somebody else on the Trump legal team. So you've got to take the temperature down. And Mueller was operating in good faith because he wanted to have that good relationship with the Trump team. And Mueller, when he hears that the stuff they're talking about privately is being leaked out, that increases the odds of maybe a subpoena coming.
Steve, what do you think when you see the president when he tweets about the Justice Department and Rod Rosenstein, when he tweets out at some point I have no choice but to use the powers granted to the presidency and get involved? I've got like many thoughts on this. One being, he can fire Rod Rosenstein.
Right.
Why? I know he's done it before, but I continue to ask, why lay this linger out there? If he doesn't like what he's doing, fire him.
Right. I agree. I think Rod Rosenstein should go. I think Attorney General Sessions should go.
That's not the question she asked, though.
No,
He's getting there. He's getting there. He's getting there.
I agree. Here's a fundamental point that I think is often missed, is that Robert Mueller works for the president. All right, and that's an uncomfortable fact that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge. He's not Ken Starr. He's not an independent counsel. He works for Trump's Justice Department.
Position.
And because he is operating like a king. He has no supervision.
Okay, this is
and
wrong.
he does not have a right to question the motives of his boss.
Donald Trump is the one who is acting like a king. The fundamental principle of American law is that no one is above the law. Right. That includes the president of the United States. If a duly authorized prosecutor seeks an indictment or seeks a subpoena against the president of the United States, that is the lawful authority to do so. You can't say that because he's the president, he can't be questioned.
No, he can be questioned by a co-equal branch like the Congress.
No,
and he can be questioned again. If you go back to the